We are pleased to be joined on the phone now by the head coach of the Mansfield Tigers, is Jeff Hulme. Hey, Coach.
Hey.
How are things in Mansfield?
Well, we're still practicing, so things are
good. Well, yeah, absolutely. I imagine, we take for granted, I think, with four teams making the playoffs and teams, everybody makes the playoffs. But I imagine that for a coach, this has got to be a satisfying moment that you check one of your boxes off of your checklist.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. I think some of the people back in the days where they only had one team going, they do look at us and go, oh, wow. But, it's still hard. Golly. There's some good teams in our district that aren't going to the playoffs. And, Duncanville being one of them. And so, it's hard to get in there.
Mm-hmm. It sure is. And you guys ran through, you mentioned a gauntlet of a district. The key win, of course, that everybody talks about being your win over Cedar Hill. What did you learn about your team to go and beat the two-time defending champs? What did you learn about your team from that game?
Well, that's a good question. I think the one thing I learned is, they never give up. There were several lead changes throughout the game. We had a couple of bad things happen to us on special teams-wise, and yet we were able to persevere and win a close game. And I think that's exactly what we just got to be talking about in our team meeting was, some of these close games in district ought to be able to help us in the playoffs because, we're getting the playoffs. We shouldn't panic if it's a close game and go from there. So I think, the biggest thing we learned is they're going to lean on each other, not panic, and, it's a full four-quarter game.
He is Jeff Hulme. He is the head coach of the District 8-6A champion Mansfield Tigers, joining us on DCTF Live. Coach, obviously, the headlines around your team start and end with your outstanding running back, Kennedy Brooks. As a guy who gets to see him operate every day, what sets him apart from some of the other running backs across the state?
Oh, well, I think part of it is, we were in there lifting weights just about 30 minutes ago, and he's in there lifting weights, and he's had, 200 carries, on the year and 2,300 yards rushing, and he's not beat up. He doesn't take a lot of full hits. He's very smooth in his running, but when teams get a beat on him, I've never seen anybody tackle him really hard. And I think that's been part of, what helped him, really since game 5 from last year until now. He's been a beast of a running back, and he, knock on wood, he has been able to stay healthy all this time.
You guys ran through a gauntlet of a non-district schedule as well. Flower Mound Marcus ended up being, one of the better teams in the area. You guys beat Hewitt Midway and then drop a game to Mansfield Summit. For you, and obviously it's not entirely your call, but when you're putting together a non-district schedule, how important is it for you to get teams that you think are going to challenge you on the schedule?
Well, I think it's very important. It depends on how many you play, whether it's 4 non-district games or 3. You want at least 2 or 3 of those games to get you ready for district, especially in the district we're in. You look at the 2 teams we lost to, they're combined 18-2. They're both 9-1. And obviously, Summit's 5A, but, there are 200 students below us. And so it's not like they're a small 5A, and it's a good rival game. But Marcus is, typical Marcus. They were big. They pushed us around a little bit and really got us focused on what we need to get better at. So, from that standpoint, it was really good. And then for us to finally break through and get after Midway, they'd beaten us 3 times in a row. So that was a satisfying non-district win, no doubt. But to play the teams we play week in and week out in our district, I think it helps out, tremendously.
What it has been a banner year for Mansfield ISD in general between y'all, Summit, Lake Ridge. What's in the water?
Well, I think number one. I think it's a great community to move to. I think people recognize that the good schools here. Academics are important. We've got a great superintendent who was an ex-coach. And so athletics are important. And, I think when people are looking at places to move, they're like, Mansfield it's not in the middle of the Metroplex. It's out of the way a little bit, and yet it's close enough to things. And so, it's a very good, place to live in the community. I mean, we've got 5 high schools, but it doesn't feel that big. It doesn't feel that spread out. So I mean, it's just a neat place to live.
He's Jeff Hulme, the head coach of the Mansfield Tigers, joining us on DCTF Live. Get involved in the conversation, #DCTF Live. Coach, one last question before we let you go. You open the playoffs against a feisty Colleyville Heritage team that you know is well coached with Joe Willis. You draw them at home. You draw them at Vernon Newsom Stadium, and you may be a little biased because you are the beneficiary, but what do you think of the pilot program in 6A of teams that are able to play at home?
Well, like you said, I'm biased because I'm playing at home. If I was in Joey McGuire's seat, I might be singing a different tune and having to go to Southlake. To be honest with you, I don't know because obviously the home teams like it and the teams that don't. I think in a way it's good because that person, the number 1 seed, has certainly earned it. And in the past, there's really been no benefit to being the number 1 seed, to be honest with you. But in the same token, I do like that, except for the state championship games, that most games are decided between the coaches and they picking neutral sites and stuff like that. So I like having a little bit of the power back in it's deciding that stuff. But I don't know. I mean, it's got its pluses and negatives, obviously. It just really depends on where you're sitting with it.
I suppose that right now, I imagine you're in favor of it. But if the shoe were on the other foot, maybe not so much.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt about it. I would certainly not be looking forward to going up to Southlake. They got some magic up in that stadium.
They sure do. Well, let's hope that you guys have some magic at Vernon Newsom Stadium on Friday night. He is Jeff Hulme, the head coach of the Mansfield Tigers, joining us on DCTF Live. Coach, thanks so much. Best of luck the rest of the way.
Hey, I appreciate it, guys. Anytime.
There he goes, Jeff Hulme.